All right, hello and welcome to this Runemaster Frostclaw Runemaster build guide. So this is fresh for the new 0.9.2 patch. In fact, we are recording this live right now, just under an hour before it goes live, so you can check it out a little bit early if you catch this video really quick. But it should be up and ready for launch. So because this is so fresh, we don't have full gameplay, but I want to show you what it looks like when it's when it's being used. This is the primary function of it, is this Frostclaw. You can spam it, and then in spamming it, you will proc Elemental Novas, which are those big spikes that are coming out. And you will also proc Ice Barrage, which is those like individual like ice shards that are hitting. The Frostclaws are the triple there, the triple blue things. All this happens together, 3 for the price of 1. You get the 2 procs from Frostclaw. Very fun setup. Does good damage. Also has CC. Really enjoyed testing this, and this is what I'm going to be playing myself on patch launch. So let's go ahead and get into like the details here. So we'll start with the pros and cons. So it has strong CC just built in by default because all 3 of the skills that you're using have freeze rate on them. So even though we don't build explicitly for freezing, it will still freeze a lot of enemies. It will do good CC. It is very tanky, so there's some new tech we'll talk about that allows you to cast Flame Ward by going through Frost Wall, which is a new skill. And we are taking advantage of that, which means that we can have 100% uptime on Flame Ward, and Flame Ward has a ton of defense. On top of that, we also run Twisted Heart of Kairos and a new passive that gives you ward on crit, and we are going to be crit capped. So we will have a ton of ward and a lot of damage reduction, and that will make us very tanky. This build is also starter friendly because it only has that one unique Twisted Heart of Kairos built into it, and that is target farmable in the Monolith of Fate, so you can get it fairly easily. So even if you don't have any gear, you're starting fresh, you can play this build. It has solid clear and single target damage. It doesn't really struggle with either of those. It's not the best at either of those, but it's good at both. So you'll be able to handle bosses and handle trashed enemies or large amounts of density, no problem. As far as the negatives, there's not a lot of big negatives. It is mana intensive, at least early on. You're going to want to build into a lot of mana regen as you go, and eventually you'll solve this problem. But early on, if you get, quote, lucky with procs, especially with Ice Barrage and nail multiple in a row, you can find yourself without enough mana and actually running out, and then you can't cast Flame Ward or Frost Wall or Teleport. So that's something that you have to manage early on, but later on you will no longer have to worry about it, but it can be a little annoying until you get the whole setup going. It is not the fastest farmer. That does not mean it's a slow farmer by any means, but compared to some of the fastest farmers in the game, it really can't compete. But then again, most builds can't. So if you're looking for like a super fast farmer, this isn't it. But if you want something that will farm pretty well, it still fits that. It's not top tiered anything. This is a jack of all trades, master of none type build, but it's good at everything. And so this is actual negative, like depends on what you're looking for. If you're trying to get a top tier boss, this is not it. If you're trying to get, like I said, top tier farm, this is not it, but it'll do everything well. So this is only a negative if you're looking for something that's really, really good at something, and not just good at everything. It does have Flame Ward uptime management. This is a permanent thing you'll have to deal with. You want to maintain 100% Flame Ward uptime, or at least be close to that, which means you'll have to be managing between casting Flame Ward and then casting Frost Wall and walking through it. So that's about the only thing you really have to manage this build, but you will be managing that and also your stun immunity. Okay, let's move on to the skills and passives, which are going to be one of the more exciting things because there's 2 new skills that we're using in this build. So Frostclaw we just talked about. Its primary purpose is to proc Elemental Nova through Celestial Conflux, and then Ice Barrage through Power Word Hail. It also gives Ice Barrage additional fire rate, which is a really cool, like, nice little bonus for that. And the other thing that we're building in here is reducing mana cost so that it's not costing us effectively anything once you get where we want it to be, and it'll also give us mana on cast, a chance to get 12 mana on cast, so it will be our mana generator as well. As far as Frost Wall, the big purpose of this is to give us Flame Ward anytime we pass through. through prepared wards. You can see on the video that that's what's happening. We're casting Frostbolt, walking through it. We're getting Flame Ward. This does have a much higher mana cost than casting it manually, so we will hybridize between casting it manually and then using this. We'll just do one and then the other. Also, if we only cast this once every 15 seconds, it doesn't cost any mana, so hybridizing is good. We also get Amulet Cleanse on this. And the other big thing that this gives us is it's actually a strong freeze. So if you're being chased by enemies that you want to get away from, cast this in front of you, walk through it, get your Flame Ward, and then they'll also be frozen from the Frostbolt itself. So this is like a really good control option. As far as Flame Ward in this setup, we are building it for both offense and defense. We are getting 250% cold damage increased from infusion and the Frost Ward cold conversion. We are also getting 8 cold damage from the same conversion and through flames, and we are getting haste on this. We'll have basically permanent haste if we keep up our Flame Ward, which is awesome. And we're also taking barrier for less hit damage. If you want to go more tanky, alternative skills and tips gives you a plan to do that. But I think for most players, this is a sizable amount of damage, and they're going to like it better because their clear is going to be better. The next skill we have is Ice Barrage. This is procced through Frostclaw, but we also will use it a little bit in our rotation on single targets. But most time it'll be procced through Frostclaw. It's going to give us a lot of single target damage through this setup, but also it's going to give us immunity to projectiles in front of us, or the way the Ice Barrage is facing for 2 seconds. It's also going to give us more global cold damage, 60% when it's active, which while Ice Shield is active, which is crazy. That's like a high amount. That's going to affect all of our skills, so this is really, really powerful. And it's got minus 20% cold damage taken, which is going to be especially good for this build because we're going to use Elemental Nova, and we are going to take more cold damage from Elemental Nova. So that will offset the increased cold damage from Elemental Nova with a decreased cold damage from Ice Barrage and basically even it out for the most part. Elemental Nova is our clear skill. This is also going to be procced through Frostclaw. This will be only procced through Frostclaw. We will not put this on our bar. We will put on Teleport, or if you want to use the Flame Rush, the new skill, you can do that too. That's also in the alternative skills in tips if you want to try that one out. I think Teleport's better because you get stun immunity, and it's a little bit cheaper, a little bit easier to use. But that's up to you. If you want to try the other skill, it's certainly there. This is set up for multipliers, so Shatter Nova, more multiplier against with Chilled, Frozen, Shocked, and Ignited. We will have at least 3 of those 4 up all of the time. And sometimes things will be frozen, and they'll take even more damage as well. Yeah, okay, that's the skills. Did I miss anything? Oh yeah, well, we'll talk about Ice Barrage in a minute. Okay, so let's talk about the passives. So there's a whole new skill tree, right? Runemaster is brand new. There's some really cool stuff in here. I'm not going to go through too much detail in here, but let's hit up on a few like really important things. Arcane Momentum is really good for the cast speed stacks, 25% cast speed. And then with Essence of Celerity, you get the additional spell damage and the movement speed, which are awesome. Calculated Destruction for int stackers is an incredible amount of crit chance, and we are int stacking on this, 90 plus. So we get a ton of crit chance from this. So this is huge for a build. Let's see. We have Sphere of Protection is a less damage taken for Ignited, Shocked, or Chilled, which enemies will be always those with us. So we'll always have 8%. Quintessence of Triumph is a cool both increased and multiplicative spell damage node. So really, really good. Mental Catalysis causes us single-handedly to take half the damage from crits that we would take. We will end up capping that with gear. Let's see. Inscribed Instruments single-handedly is the reason why we want to use a wand, basically, because 72% crit multi is awesome. Let's see. Jagged Veil, ward gain on crit is huge. We're gonna get a ton of ward from that. We're also gonna get a more crit multi on bosses. That is a multiplier on top of crit multi for 20%, so that's 20% damage on bosses. Really, really strong. And we got Runeward Avalanche in here, which we only need 1 point to get the extra +6 cold damage. And we also will be igniting, so we'll get some endurance threshold from this as well. That's the big ones I want to talk about. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, let's move on. Okay, gameplay, skill use, rotation. Let's not spend too much time here. This covers it pretty well. It's not a complex rotation. You're going to start with either Frost Wall or Flame Ward to have Flame Ward up. Then you spam Frost Claw to do your damage. Once your Flame Ward is about to fall off, whichever one you didn't do, Frost Wall or Flame Ward, do that next. You're going to alternate Flame Ward, Frost Wall, Flame Ward, Frost Wall, or Frost Wall, Flame Ward, Frost Wall, Flame Ward. That's pure preference, which one you go with. But keep rotating that to keep up your Flame Ward. Use teleport for positioning to avoid Telegraph's attacks, but also use it for stun immunity. And that's pretty much the rotation. Like that's pretty much all it is. On bossing, it's slightly different because at the start, you're going to use Ice Barrage just to instantly have it, because it's going to do most of your single target damage, and then you're just going to go into your rotation. That's all there is to that. Very easy rotation. Okay. Let's move on to gear. Blessings and idols. Okay, so not going to cover starting gear, advanced gear too much. Let's just talk about endgame gear. And Bisque gear is going to be just better versions of endgame gear. So the big thing here is Twisted Heart of Okairos. You need that for massive ward generation. It's also increased health. It's also strength, which is armor, cast speed, and +1 elemental spells. This is an amazing unique. We really, really want this. Fortunately, it's target farmable, so you'll get it. Crystal Skull is huge for this build because of the flat spell crit. If you're not familiar with Last Epoch's crit calculation, there's flat crit and then there's increased crit. Increased crit's a multiplier and a flat crit. So the more flat crit you have, the better your multiplier is. So we definitely have to have that. That's really important. The intelligence, ward retention are nice extras. We are also going to run a crystal wand here. Why will we run this over the cast speed wand? The reason is because we want to get to 300% mana. Why do we want to get to 300 mana? Why do we want to get there? Because we're going to use increased spell crit chance. Double effect of 300 more mana on both our helmet and our chest. This is a ton of increased crit for just getting 300 mana. And we'll also on our idol have a this actually needs to be why is it that way? That one should be the other one. That one should be the shared one anyway, or the double increased cold. If you have 300, I'll switch that. So that's gonna also be on there. Let's see, what else do we need to cover? We're in stacking hard on this build. We are health stacking hard on this build for Twisted Heart because it's going to take advantage of that. So those are two really big stats. We want to have mana regen on our rings and our belts just to smooth out the build. You can put on amulets, but it's less efficient. You want crit strike chance and crit multi there, but it also does fit there. Reduce bonus damage taken from crits and armor is a new affix. We should talk about that. So we want to get a tier 5 on our chest, and we want a sealed one, preferably on our boots. And if we get that, we will be effectively crit capped. We will take no damage from crits by doing that. So really, really good new affix that we're going to take advantage of. We do have one experimental affix in here for now. That's all we have currently. It could change with testing, but so far, the ward decay threshold, ward gained on potion use per 10 intelligence is the only one that I felt like fit, and it fits as a seal. So that's what we're going to use there. Okay, that should cover those. Let's talk about blessings and idols. The big blessings to know about. Grand Hunger of the Void is used for your leech. This is your only sustained source. This is really important. You will use Avarice until you get this. To get your leech, you're going to need a source of sustain to maintain Twisted Heart. So this is big. This is the first thing you're going to want to get. All resistance can be used from the Reign of Dragons. Normally this would be critical strike avoidance, but since we're going bonus damage to crit strikes instead, we can go all resistance, which is really nice. Chance to shred cold resist on hit is a very large damage multiplier. 20% on bosses, I think 40%, if I remember correctly, on non-bosses. That's a big deal. We want this. Grand Body of Obsidian is a bunch of flat armor. Really valuable. And then Grand Might of the Sea Titan for the increased cold damage. 100% increased cold damage from one source is really high. Okay, idols. The big one is Throne of Ambition. This is a multiplier for your damage and for your armor on bosses and rares. Very, very good idol. The huge arcane idol with stun immunity is going to be our source of stun immunity, so we really want this. And then that suffix was actually going to be cold damage doubled if you have 300 or more mana. So I will get that adjusted. The rest of the idols are going to be double healths for your stouts. And then you're just filling in your resistances here on your 1x1s. Stun chance, armor, mana are all good prefixes. Okay. Let's see, build scaling and endgame. We won't spend too much time here, but just go over things that I might have missed before. Let's see, flat spell damage, of course, really important. Cast speed's really good. Why are we seeing Twisted Heart here? Move, please, Twister. Thank you. Cast speed's really good because it increases the speed at which we attack with Frostclaw, which increases our proc rate, etc. Everything goes better. Cooldown reduction is not super important in this build, but it does decrease the CD on Flame Ward and Teleport, which is nice. And decreasing on Flame Ward is nice because it's actually more mana efficient than Frostwall, so you might be able to get an extra Flame Ward here or there. But it's not a big deal. We do have some cooldown reduction in it, but not a priority stat. We talked about Flame Ward earlier and just how good it is for both damage and defense. That's covered here again. We just talked about Crystal Wand and Crystal Skull. We talked about intelligence. Let's just reiterate why intelligence is so good. Increased damage to all your 4% increased damage per point of intelligence to all of your damage stats. 4% ward retention per point. This is a ward-based build, so we really want that. And then because of calculated destruction, we also get the spell crit strike chance per intelligence. That's huge. So really good stat. This is a priority stat. We're going to try to push this as far as we can. Increased damage, we'll be taking colder spell damage when we can, or when it fits. Critical strike chance, we're going to cap this at 100%, so we want increased critical strike chance, and we're set up to cap it on the planner. Crit multi is a really good stat. We're going to be 100% crit chance, so crit multi is going to scale really well. We want a source of Shred Armor somewhere, because Shred Armor is just a really good multiplier. Grand Rage of Winter we talked about with Shred Cold, and we talked about Throne of Ambition. As far as defense, we already talked about CDR. Armor mitigation we get decent armor mitigation on this build. If you take the armor where we put it, you'll have 30% or so to most damage types, 40% to Fizz. We talked about ward a bit. Ward is going to be generated primarily from ward gained on crit and Twisted Heart of Okairos, so we're gonna really we're gonna have a lot of ward because of it. Because we're gonna use Twisted Heart, we're gonna want a ton of health, at least 300, at least 3,000 in the late end game, but closer to 4,000 preferably if we can get there. Chill and Frailty are really good ailments, so we're gonna have those in the build. We talked about Freeze being a good CC layer. That's still true. We also will get some stun from Nova and Ice Barrage, which is nice. And then we talked about stun immunity with the huge Arcane Idol and the phasing prefix. Okay. As far as endgame activities, I won't go into detail here, but it's good in Monolith, it's good in Dungeons, it's good in Arena. It's good at everything. It's not going to blow you away in any one particular thing, but this is going to be a balanced, very solid option for any content that you might want to run. It's smooth, it's easy to play. It just doesn't have any weaknesses. Okay. Last thing is we have a loot filter. Loot filter is done, already in here. Download it, you're good to go. It should be nice and well set up. Okay, that is everything. That is the build guide. In a few days, I will release a new one with actual gameplay footage, but this one should tide you over until then. And hopefully you guys have a great time with this build, as I will. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great time in Last Epoch and enjoy the new patch.